The air was razor cold that morning, the kind of cold that turns every breath into a cloud of smoke and every sound into crystal. High above the valley, snow-covered peaks glowed pink beneath the rising sun. Pine forests stretched for miles, their branches heavy with frost. Nothing stirred except the wind. For Michael Parker, the silence of Montana's winter wilderness was both friend and enemy. He'd come here 6 months ago, a wildlife photographer chasing the last wild wolves of the northern range. But he wasn't just here for work. He was running from something, a life that had grown too crowded, too loud, too far from meaning. Now, his cabin was his whole world, a wooden outpost surrounded by endless white. He spent his days hiking the ridges, setting camera traps, studying tracks in the snow. Every now and then, he'd hear a distant howl, the song of the creatures he'd come to find. That morning, he strapped on his boots, grabbed his camera, and headed toward the frozen river. The light was soft and gold. Snow squeaked under his boots. The only sound was the rhythm of his breathing. Then, faint beneath the wind, came something else. A cry, high, broken, and desperate. He stopped, listening. The forest held its breath. The sound came again, a weak, pitiful whimper. Michael frowned. It wasn't human. It wasn't a bird. It was something small and in pain. He turned off the trail, pushing through drifts of snow, following the sound deeper into the pines. His heart began to race. A few minutes later, he found it. Half buried under a fallen branch, tangled in roots and ice, lay a wolf pup. Barely old enough to survive on its own. Its hind leg twisted unnaturally, pinned between the gnarled wood and frozen soil. Its fur, gray, soft, matted with blood, trembled with every shallow breath. Michael froze. He knew this could be dangerous. A wolf pup this young meant a pack nearby. Maybe even its mother watching right now, hidden among the trees. But the pup's cry cut through every hesitation he had. He knelt slowly, hands open. Hey there, little one," he whispered. His voice came out soft, steady. The pup bared its teeth, weakly growling. Michael saw fear, not rage, in its eyes. It tried to pull free but yelped, collapsing again. "Easy," he murmured. "I've got you." He removed his gloves and touched the root trapping its leg. The wood was frozen solid. His fingers burned from the cold as he pulled, pushed, twisted. The pup snapped once, missed his hand by inches, then whimpered, exhausted. "Almost. There," he grunted. With one final heave, the root gave way. The pup tumbled free, crying out. Its leg was bleeding, a deep cut, maybe fractured. It tried to stand, but collapsed immediately. Michael's chest ached. "Oh, you poor thing." He took off his coat and wrapped it gently around the trembling body. The pup whimpered, but didn't resist this time. It was too weak. He lifted it against his chest. It weighed almost nothing. As he turned toward the trail, a sound echoed through the trees, low, haunting, and close. A howl. Michael froze mid-step. Then another answered, higher-pitched, mournful. The mother. He felt the hair rise on the back of his neck. The forest went still. "Easy," he whispered to himself. "Let's just keep moving." He quickened his pace, crunching through the snow, heart hammering. The howls faded but never disappeared. By the time he reached his cabin, the sun had fallen behind the ridge. The air turned blue and heavy with frost. Inside, he set the pup down by the fire, shaking from both fear and cold. The animal curled instinctively toward the warmth. Michael worked fast, boiling water, tearing strips of clean cloth, mixing snowmelt with iodine. He cleaned the wound carefully. The pup yelped and kicked once, but soon grew still, eyes half closed. "You're okay," Michael whispered. "I promise." He wrapped the leg in bandages, then covered it with part of an old flannel shirt. When he was done, he sat back, watching the tiny creature breathe. It was beautiful, even in its fragility. Soft fur glowing amber under the firelight, small chest rising and falling. Outside, the wind howled. Then, faintly, another howl answered. Long, searching, sorrowful. Michael's stomach twisted. He looked toward the window, at the endless black beyond the glass. "She's looking for you, isn't she?" he whispered. He stoked the fire and sat beside it until sleep claimed them both. It was nearly midnight when he woke, a sound, scratching, slow, deliberate, at the door. Michael's blood ran cold. He reached for his flashlight and knife. The scratching came again, louder this time. Then, silence. He crept to the window and peered out. Two golden eyes stared back at him from the darkness. The wolf, full-grown, massive. Her fur bristled, breath steaming in the cold. She paced, head low, ears pinned back. Michael stepped away from the window, heart pounding. He could hear her now, soft growls, claws scraping against wood. The pup stirred by the fire, letting out a faint whimper. The mother froze, then pressed her head against the door. Michael swallowed hard. She wasn't attacking, she was listening. He whispered, "She knows he's here." For nearly an hour she circled the cabin. Once, she came so close that he could see her shadow move across the frosted glass. Then, as silently as she had come, she disappeared into the trees. Michael exhaled shakily and sank to the floor. He didn't sleep again that night. Days passed. The pup, he started calling it Coda, healed slowly. It drank milk from a bowl, ate scraps of meat, and began to hobble around the cabin, tail twitching. It followed him everywhere, sometimes curling up on his boots while he wrote in his field journal. But each night, the howls came closer. Michael would stand on the porch, lantern in hand, staring into the dark. Somewhere out there, she waited, watching. He spoke to her sometimes, softly. "He's alive? I'm just helping him." The wind carried no reply. On the 7th day, the pup began to walk on its own. Its limp was still heavy, but its eyes were brighter, more confident. It even barked. A clumsy, high-pitched sound that made Michael laugh for the first time in months. But the more the pup healed, the more restless it became. Every time a howl rose from the forest, Coda froze, ears pricked, whining toward the door. Michael knew the truth. He couldn't keep him. That night, as snow drifted gently outside, Michael packed a small satchel with jerky, bandages, and a blanket. He said aloud, "Tomorrow you go home." Coda tilted his head, as if understanding. Morning came gray and cold. Clouds hung low over the valley. Michael slung his pack and carried Coda down the ridge trail, his boots crunching softly in the snow. The air smelled of pine and smoke. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. When they reached the clearing where he'd first found him, Michael stopped. "This is it, little guy," he said softly. He set the pup down. Coda limped in a slow circle, sniffing the air, ears twitching. Then, a rustle. At the edge of the trees, she appeared. The mother wolf. Her fur glistened in the morning light. Her eyes sharp and golden. She took one slow step forward, then another. Michael's breath caught. He dropped to one knee, making himself small. "It's okay," he whispered. "He's yours." Coda barked once, then bounded toward her, stumbling but determined. The mother watched, tense, until he reached her. She lowered her head, sniffed him, and let out a soft rumble that vibrated through the clearing. Then she turned her gaze to Michael. Every instinct told him to back away, to leave, but he couldn't move. The look in her eyes wasn't anger, it was something else. Understanding. She stepped closer, 10 feet, 5. Michael could see the scar on her shoulder, the breath steaming from her nostrils. She stopped a few feet away, staring straight into his eyes, and then she did something unthinkable. She bowed her head. It wasn't submission, it was acknowledgement. A thank you in the only language she knew. Michael's throat tightened. "You're welcome," he whispered, voice breaking. The wolf held his gaze a moment longer, then turned, nudging Coda gently. Together, they disappeared into the forest. Michael stood there long after they were gone. the silence around him thick and sacred. Weeks passed. The snow melted, rivers swelled, and life returned to the valley. Michael stayed, still photographing, still listening. But something inside him had changed. He no longer felt alone. Each night, he'd step outside as the stars burned bright above the peaks. Sometimes, far away, he'd hear it, a long, rising howl carried on the wind. He'd smile. "Good night, Coda." Months later, in early spring, he returned to the ridge. The air smelled of thawing earth and pine resin. Birds sang again. He climbed higher than before, following tracks through the mud, small, light ones beside larger prints. At the top of the hill, he saw them. Across the clearing, standing beneath a blooming tree, was the mother wolf, and beside her, now grown strong and proud, was Coda. They stared at him across the distance. The mother tilted her head. The pup barked once. Michael raised his hand slowly, smiling. The wind rustled the grass between them, carrying no fear, no divide, only peace. And then they turned, padding silently back into the forest. Michael lifted his camera, took one photo, and whispered, "You found your way." Later, back at the cabin, he printed the photo and pinned it above the fireplace. It showed two wolves fading into a green blur. Wild, free, untouchable. He stared at it for a long time, warmth spreading in his chest. Sometimes, he thought he could still hear their howls in the distance. Other times, he just listened to the quiet and smiled, knowing the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of trust, of memory, of life. And that's the story of Michael Parker and Coda, the day a man saved a wounded wolf pup, and the wild answered with something no one could have expected. It reminds us that mercy has no species, that even the fiercest hearts can recognize kindness. If this story moved you, leave a comment, share it, and subscribe for more. Till next time, remember, sometimes the wild doesn't take, sometimes it gives back.